You see, there's scarcely a person you'll meet that doesn't need to know about peace. Now, let me put this a bit more accurately. Almost everyone you meet will not understand what peace relies on. They all need it. All life needs peace. See, if you're anxious about some change you require and you're pressing God, you're not in peace. So how could you possibly be permanently in peace? Because surely, you may probably say, surely I'm going to have needs from time to time. How can I have continual peace then that passes all understanding? Well, there's the key. It passes all understanding. You're confronted with, the roof collapsing, and you're at peace. Sure, you're getting out of the way if you can, and you're putting right the damage, and you're rescuing those that need to be rescued. But you have an inner peace. What is this inner peace? That God is in charge. If he has the roof fall in, it's for a blessing. And you are holding yourself in awareness that you may be sensitive to leading as to what that blessing is and anything you might be required to do, so to speak, to be part of it. But it's not an urgency. You are still. You have an inner calmness. You're the only person there, perhaps, that can minimize collateral damage because you have a collective awareness of God, more important than the situation. Do you see, in order to have continuous peace, the peace of our God, you have to have the continuous trust in our God, that he is indeed, for instance, all-powerful and all-loving, and therefore this all that you are experiencing is good, because it's his will. Now you may say, well, that's more than heroic thing to be attaining, but do you see? It doesn't matter how you analyze it. It's still the case that if you're worried about something, you're not at peace. If you must have such and such change, how can you claim you're at peace? I must have it. Lord, give me. And of course, good dad comes to your rescue in whatever way is best to come to your rescue and does respond. But don't kid yourself you've got the peace of God. You haven't. Know what peace is. It must be that you trust him in all situations. Now you might think, well, that's impossible to achieve. But is it? Is it? Aren't we moving towards that? Is that my friend? When whatsoever's good and lovely, think on these things. When you start to thank God for all the good and all the minor bads, and then all the not so minor bads, and then some absolutely, whoa, what would have been seen as catastrophic bads, you're going to say, I trust you, Lord. And suddenly you find you're in the miraculous. Astonishing things start to happen around you. You become a person of faith. Truly, not just not just a sort of general impression of faith that a religious person might feel they've arrived at, but an absolute bond of trust in all circumstances. Quite simply, that's why you are here. You need that to have life eternal. You are here learning it. You're here training for it. This is what you need to be practicing. This is why, simply thanking God for all things, the practice of approaching that, attempting that, learning to do that is so fundamental, effective, necessary, vital, is the very substance of why you're in the universe of the transitory, where there is the unpredictable, the unknown, change, time, matter, space, and all that. You're simply practicing learning to trust in situations of uncertainty. Why? Because God, your Heavenly Father, whom you're a child of, is expanding at such a rate in complexity and being and wonderfulness that you can't actually know the fullness of Him unless you were Him, in which case you're not a child of God, you're Him. And therefore, to be a friend to Him, we seek a purity in the uncertainty where we simply reflect His glory. I say simply, but it's not that simple, is it, when your kids are like their parents? They're reflecting the glory of dad or mum or both, but it's a different mix, a kaleidoscope. Do you see they're in harmony, ideally, with mum and dad? But they're not the same person, are they? But they do reflect them. And it is their trust and purity that has brought them to this closeness with the parents, such that they reflect the character, even the mannerisms and the ways of thinking. But they're not the same person. There's a difference between dad and mum and the older kids and the younger ones and this one and that one and so forth. So, it's fundamental that you are learning to trust absolutely. The emphasis, "O ye of little faith." Not that they have none, but it's little. And the inference is, you need more, or you should exercise more. Or if you exercise the little faith that you do have, then you will develop more. But there's some impression, isn't there, that really it would have been nice if they'd have had a bit more faith. Because he's dealing with children. But he's at the other end in the story. Don't you know that I could call on 10 legions of angels to come and rescue the situation if it were my Father's will? And that's, but I don't think it is. So I'm not doing it. I'm doing what I trust to be right, a blessing, goodness of my Father. I don't think he means God's insisting I do it. If you think of it, God never insists, well, apart from when, you're overridden by circumstances, but he doesn't press you verbally to do something. He might cut across what you're doing by the circumstances he puts around you. But he doesn't seem to. Most people are doing much wrong much of the time. They don't have God leaping out of heaven and saying, hey, don't do that again, stop doing that, You know, we don't get these communications from God. But to return to the point here, if you want peace, you can't have it without trust. If you want perfect peace, you can't have it without perfect trust. And unquestionably, life eternal in the kingdom of heaven, the host of heaven, it would be a great shame if you were in poverty of trust and peace. I mean, what sort of heaven is that? Thank you, Dad. Well, there's a difference then between continually praying for something, for God to intervene and cut in on the miracles. It's quite different to continually praying gratitude, thanks and praise, where you're ever seeing the goodness of God and ever trusting where you can't see, but trusting so much, you're still thanking God for it, because you trust. And some things you can see, that's good, wasn't that wonderful? I had this nice meeting, this nice something or other. And some things you can't see. Oh, everybody thinks this is a catastrophe, but I'm trusting God. I'm here to trust God. I'm not panicking. I'll do what obviously seems to be best to do. I'm not striving. I'm not even asking God to change. I'm just holding myself in readiness to understand what God's teaching. He will change it the very instant that it's right to change it. He may ask me. I may find I'm spontaneously asking. You know, the Spirit moves me that this person needs my compassion in the way they can understand it. And me just saying, oh, don't worry, dear, it's okay with God. it's not going to cut it. So I may need to pray with them because they've asked earnestly. And so I will ask for the change too. I know that whichever way God answers it, it's best. They don't know that. They feel so strongly that it can only be answered in one way to be best. They can't take no for an answer. Okay. He's Dad. He loves them to bits. He'll do what's best. Perhaps this is a great teaching thing for them. Don't know. I don't need to know. I just need to trust. So you might hear me praying and asking. It might be because the Spirit's prompted me to do so direct. You know, I just feel, I should be praying for this. Well, okay, he'll understand. But I won't battle with God. I'll ask. You know, I don't need to ask 500 times or shout louder than the next man. I just ask. And then I trust. Do you see? There's a peace, an absolute shalom, an absolute peace, and it grows on you fantastically. It's the shalom. It's more than peace. It's the peace that comes from situations where you feel, goodness, God's given me everything here. This is astonishing. And you've had times like that in your life when things have just been, oh, that was lovely. That was a perfect day, God. Oh, that was lovely. Love you. So there's a peace, and there's a trust, and there's love. And really, they run pretty close to each other, don't they? My goodness, do they run close to each other? Thank you, Heavenly Father. And I've realised I've just dictated this right next to a main road, so it might be just a bit noisier than I thought. Thank you, Dad.